Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is the October 16, 2023 Board of Education meeting. Before we begin, as always, please take a second to take a look at your phones and place them on silent. And once we do that, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, let's start with roll call. Mr. Hatfield.
Yes. President McFarland.
Here.
Vice President Roush.
Here.
Secretary Hatfield is here. Treasurer Lauterbach.
Here.
Member Blasey.
Here.
Member Ringgold.
Here.
Member Horwitz.
Present.
All right.
Fantastic. Full board. Okay, moving into our consent agenda, we have item 2.1, which is approval of the minutes from September 18, 2023. Item 2.2 is looks like we have one teacher being recommended for hire. Item 2.3 is an employee leave request. Item 2.4 is a list of staff who have announced their resignations as well as effective dates. Item 2.5 in the agenda is approval of the school system's bills for the months of July and August in the amount of $14,664,010. Item 2.6 is a list of legal bills that are also being recommended for payment. And item 2.7 is the Altria settlement resolution. And with that, I will accept the motion.
I move adoption of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
I'm sorry. Okay. Motion by Mr. Lauterbach, supported by Mrs. Horowitz. Any discussion regarding items 2.1 through 2.7 as listed? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on, item 3. These are Board of Education matters, presentations to the board. Item 3.1, Shining Stars. Penny.
This is so fun. We have 2 tonight. Come on up, Maggie. It's kind of fun to greet these folks at the door and understand that they're nervous about this. Come stand right here with me. So this is Maggie Batter. Maggie's career highlights include that she joined the MPS team in 2017 as a paraprofessional at Plymouth. She is currently employed there as their media specialist. To further her professional development, Maggie became a highly qualified paraprofessional by completing the Educational Testing Service Paraprofessional Assessment. Maggie was nominated by an MPS colleague, and among their comments were the following. Maggie went above and beyond by assisting with the Chromebook distribution at the start of the school year. While this is not a core part of her responsibilities, her hard work was appreciated by both staff and students so they could start the year with the tools needed to be successful with state testing and classroom assignments. Maggie has a wonderful rapport with students and staff in her building. Students often come to her with questions, and she is always willing to stop what she is doing to help out. Maggie always ensures that students have a quality experience in the Media Center. She creates book displays and interactive activities for students to get them excited about reading, which we love. We're fortunate to have Maggie as a member of our team. Congratulations on being the Shining Star. This is for you, and this is for you, and you are welcome to go.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Oh, watch your step. Bring it.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Our second Shining Star is Mark. Mark Guerin, come on up, Mark. Yay! Come stand by me and anywhere you want. I mean, right there if you want. Mark joined our team in 2022 when he was hired to teach 4th grade at Chestnut Hill, and that's the position that he currently holds. He earned his Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of California, Santa Barbara. Mark was nominated for his Shining Star by an MPS parent and colleagues, and among their comments are the following. Mark has was very warm and welcoming to my daughter, who is new to the district. He was also very accommodating to allow us to drop off supplies before the start of the school year. He is very prompt at communicating with parents regarding any issue, no matter how big or small. He is a caring teacher, always putting the needs of his students first, not only for his class, but with other students too. He makes connections, takes genuine interest in his students, and insists that students treat each other with kindness and respect. All the things we love about you. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And this is for you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Awesome. Have a great night. You too. And I did tell them again, part of their gift of winning is that they don't have to stay for the whole board meeting. So thanks to everybody who came out to celebrate our shining stars.
We'll give him a second.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have item 3.2. We have Kimberly Fennell and John Mulvaney, who are presenting the Multilingual Learners Program.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us tonight. Kimberly Funnell and John Mulvaney. My role is I help coordinate the efforts kind of behind the scene. You also know that I help manage some grants, so we do have some supplemental grants that help support our multilingual learners as well. I hope this evening's presentation is informative. Certainly if you have questions, we do have a slide at the end for you to ask more questions from us, but we hope you find this very informative tonight. So what we have to present to you this evening, we thought it would be very helpful to update the board with our entrance procedures. How do we identify students who are potentially multilingual learners and need additional supports? We're going to share with you what we call our language acquisition plan. This is a federal requirement, which I'll go into in a little bit. We want to share what our current counts are, and I say current because that number continues to change. I was notified today that we'll have a new student entering in January, so I work very closely with our registrar, so we know when a new student is arriving so that we can assess their needs right away. We also have additional multilingual tutors or specialists that work directly with the students that we help. We kind of co-supervise. And then we wanted to share with you what additional supports we have in place through some of our grants that we have. And then what supports we have in place for classroom teachers and some of the communication tools that we're tapping into this year. With that, I'll turn it over to John.
Hello.
Hi.
My name's John. I am the Multilingual Learner Advisor. I'm excited about this positive thing that I have to share with you and talk about. It's not always been that way when I've come to talk to the board, but I'm super excited about this. This is not new to the country or to Midland. Even the terminology has changed over the decades. This slide, 30 plus years ago, multilingual learners were called limited English proficient. It's evolved into English second language learner, into English language learner, and most recently, multilingual learner. That's the most recent terminology, trying to be inclusive and not, putting forth the idea that someone is lacking. Okay, it's not limited English. It's not English as your second language. It's a multilingual learner. But part of my job, the main part of my job, is to work with the classroom teachers and make sure they're aware of the multilingual learners, first of all, potentially in their classroom, and different things that they can do to help them. We had a professional development this summer. I really wanted to make clear to the teachers that no matter what the terminology is, there are students. There are students, and connected to that, in the business they call it funds of knowledge. It is not just MPS or just the schools or just the teachers trying to accommodate ourselves to them, but these students, these multilingual learners, they bring very unique perspectives a lot of insight into different cultures to the classroom and to the school. And so those funds of knowledge are a benefit to us as a district, as MPS, but also, in individual schools and in individual classrooms. So it's very reciprocal in that way.
Okay, I will walk through our identification process, and that begins with the enrollment. And that's why I work really closely with our registrar. The required questions on the application, and these are changing a little bit too. They're changing the verbiage just a little bit, but the essence is still the same. So basically, whoops, I should probably advance the slide. Sorry about that. Was the first language learned a language other than English? If the answer is yes, that student is flagged, and then we screen them to determine if he or she needs additional supports. And the other question that is a requirement is the language other than English spoken in the student's home environment? So again, if a yes is answered to either of those questions, then Rebecca lets us know, and then we put our team together and assess some needs. Michigan joined the WIDA consortium. The WIDA is an acronym, but that is our state assessment that we use to first screen our multilingual learners. And those are performed in grade bands. Kindergarten is the screener and the assessment are done pretty much individually. And it's done through a series of activities. Grades 1 through 12, screener is done through a computer. So students have a ticket to log into the system. We make sure they have headphones with a microphone because we're assessing their English skills in reading and writing and speaking and listening, all 4 of those domains. From that, a student is given a composite score. If the student scores within a range of 1 to 4.8, or 4.7, they qualify for supports, extra supports. Where they're at on that scale, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, is determined on the amount of need or support that they get. Let me go on through here. Our WIDA access for English learners is our state summative assessment. So students who are identified as English learners, whether or not they refuse services, so families can refuse services and that's okay, but we still have to administer the WIDA access in the spring. I say the spring, but that always comes usually in February, and we wrap it up before spring break. This is just another flow chart, the same information I just explained, but this is a flow chart showing our entrance and exit process, something that we share with our administrators and teachers. And I think this one is you, John. I'll let you go through this one. This talks a little bit more about those levels. So if a student coming in screens at a level 1, we know that they're entering and just emerging as English learners.
And so the screener and the access test, both WIDA, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of support from the district. The multilingual specialists are the ones that will provide those throughout the schools. The principals, the front office staff, the teachers. It feels like, Mary will get mad at me, but it feels like an M-STEP. It feels like a PSAT. It feels like a real standardized type test that they have to take. These are the different levels. You have 1, which is entering, all the way up through 6, which is reaching. Depending on their grade level, you'll notice here the WIDA screener score, kindergarten, including young 5s, are just going to do listening and speaking, and then that extends through all 4 domains. Basically, if they get less than a 5.0 on any one of those domains, there's an overall, but then there's 4 that are used to create the overall WIDA score. They are officially a multilingual learner, and that official multilingual learner then gets entered in the system, and they get a variety of services. Until spring comes, which we count spring as February with this test, so maybe weather-wise we'll also count it as February if we're lucky. If they get a 4.8, they get officially exited from the program. But until then, they are officially getting different levels of service, and even once they are exited, it's 3 years, right? I think it's 3 years we check in on them. We continue to do that even after they get exited from the program.
I'll just add one thing to that. So I've been supporting multilingual learners for quite a while in my profession, and I've actually seen a time where the cut scores were reevaluated, and so a few students that were exited a previous year because the cut scores were of such were re-entered because the cut scores were changed, and they did not have the scores to then be officially exited anymore. So at any moment, if and when those get changed, we may have to reevaluate. Okay, so again, this is just another look at, or excuse me, this is our language acquisition plan. This is what we are required to attach to our federal grant application. And so you'll see that students that range from 1 to 1.9 receive an additional 30 to 60 minutes of English language development. And then developing, usually 50 to 60 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week. You can see the progression there. Up to levels 4 to 4.7, typically those students are on a check-in basis, and so we're just monitoring their grades and attendance to make sure that they're still on track.
This is just to give you a little bit of an idea, a snapshot of the multilingual learners here in the district. I'm getting old. Far left, there are the schools. You can see different schools. They go from Adams down to Dow High. You can get an idea of the different multilingual learners. Dow High, for example, has 15. Jefferson has 13. Total is 122. That's an unofficial total. But there are also, you see 30 check-ins. So those check-ins are from across the district. They don't get direct tutoring services from the multilingual specialists, but they're still on our radar, making sure they're doing okay with grades. The other one is country of origin. So to give you an idea of where a lot of our students come from. I always find it really interesting. It's news to a lot of people where usually the top one or maybe second country of origin is the United States. It's the United States. They're U.S. citizens, many of them. Language spoken, you can see our most popular multilingual language is Korean, followed by Spanish and Pohnpeian. Pohnpeian, I've learned a lot about this community from Micronesian islands. There's Chuukese and there's Pohnpeian and there's one more. We have a fairly large population here in MPS, and that's great. The challenge, though, is a lot of the technological tools that we have, because Pohnpeian is a relatively small language spoken by a few people. Google Translate, a lot of these tech tools don't work for them, so it makes it that much harder for the kids. And on the right, the last one is you have the range. So what that means is, for example, entering 1 to 1.9, 1 is the lowest on the WIDA, you have 27 multilingual learners. And it was really interesting. I'm not sure how many Kim, maybe you know the exact number, but the amount of new kindergartners coming in that we already knew that were multilingual learners, and the amount of kindergarten screeners, new ones that had to be done.
Yeah. So when I mentioned that we all are trained to give the screener, I'm the one trained to administer the kindergarten screener. So I think of our numbers, we only had about 3 or 4 that qualified at this time. But we're only screening for listening and speaking skills at this time of the year. I'll follow up with all of them again in January, those that didn't qualify, and those that did, to then reassess their reading and writing. And I'm sure at that time we'll see more that qualify. That's yours. That one.
Some student support we have multilingual learner specialists, which are very highly qualified. We have 2 full-time and 1 part-time. When classroom teachers are asking for support, like, when can we get help, there's lots of different things that are out there. I've created a Canvas page, there's resources there. I will come and help them in the classroom a little bit, but what they really mean is, when's the tutor come in to help our students? Right now we have 2 full-time and 1 part-time. I really want to thank you, because the district was generous in giving me 1 hour release time this year, which gives me a lot more time to sift through different resources and organize things and visit the schools to help out where I can. Also recently, we have integrated Imagine Learning and Literacy, which is a, what do you call it, software?
It's an adaptive software.
It's an adaptive software which can be assigned to the multilingual learners, which, as they're improving, the lessons will get a little bit harder and it will grow with them. That's a tool that the classroom teachers can use integrated within their classroom lessons sometimes, or even standalone with the students to use. One of the pedagogical tools that I try to give our teachers and classroom teacher support is connected to SIOP, which is Sheltered Instructional Observation Protocol, which is a really interesting acronym, I think. So I changed it. Unofficial, SIOP is official, but visits is unofficial to me and to our district. When I talk to the classroom teachers, they're like, I'm busy, I gotta do this, I gotta do X, Y, and Z. I got 20 students, I got 30 students in my classroom. This student is a 1.7 on the WIDA screener. They need lots of help. They don't understand anything that I'm doing. And I say, I understand that you can't spend every single minute with them. I understand you can't live with that student. But what I ask the classroom teachers to do is visit them. Can you visit them once in a while? Can you make a visit during this lesson or during a day? Because that's going to make all the difference. And what VISIT stands for is this: visually present. The more that classroom teachers are able to visually present, use different things, use different pictures in the PowerPoint, more visuals are better. Because if you don't speak a language and you're in there and they're going full speed at a language you don't even understand, those visuals can be almost like cookie crumbs that help you along. Intentionally reflect. And I tell the teachers too, this is not something new. All teachers do this in their classroom. We know to visually present to all of our students. We know to intentionally reflect what's troublesome about this lesson. What might be something they need more time? Should I change this test a little bit? But even more so for multilingual learners. Slow down. And that could even just be speaking. That's the basics, right? Slow down in how fast I'm talking. Slow down in how fast I might be covering this concept or covering this book, because that multilingual learner might have been lost 10 minutes ago, half an hour ago. Include always, not spelling error. We want to include the multilingual learners as often as we can in all different types of ways. And that, for the classroom teacher, it's hard. I'm happy I'm still mostly a classroom teacher for most of the day, because the other classroom teachers will buy what I'm saying a little bit more, because I know how busy you are. And like, you want me to do this? I don't have time to do this. But that kid who's sitting in that classroom, whether it's elementary or secondary, they want to be included as often as possible. Test creatively. And really I meant to check their understanding often and creatively, but I needed a T, so I'm saying test, right? Test creatively. Maybe it's 3 questions instead of 10. Maybe it's have the student make a recording instead of having to speak in front of the classroom. All those little things are going to help when you have that multilingual learner. Sometimes I'll remind my students of my own class. Tomorrow, I always tease them, I have a foreign exchange student from Germany in one of my econ hours. I said, all right, guys, tomorrow we're going to have our econ test in German. You ready? Like, no, you're crazy. Well, a lot of these multilingual learners, they're testing, they're presenting, they're reading in their second and third or fourth languages sometimes. S stands for scaffold often, providing all different types of scaffolds, all different types of assistance. In the Canvas course that I've created, there's a lot of different technological improvements that they can use, or any of these, to help visit that student. Can't live with them, but they can visit them. And so when these visits occur often and effectively, both the teacher and student get their passport stamped multiple times. And those stamps could include learning the language, building relationships in the classroom, improving that classroom environment and making them part of that environment and content ultimately, whether it's elementary or secondary. Getting that passport stamp, making those visits can make that happen.
Thanks, John. Okay, bear with me, just a couple more slides, I promise. Okay, so John kind of already talked about his release time. I don't know, I can't click on the, do they get a copy of the presentation? Okay, perfect. So there's the hyperlink there. You can observe and go in and see John's Canvas page and see all the resources that he has there for our staff. But it really has been a true gift to have him have that time. He is constantly reaching out, and teachers are reaching out to him. And as I go into buildings, they're saying, hey, I heard I'm getting a new student. I'm like, well, get in touch with John, and he'll put you in good hands. So thank you very much for supporting that effort. A few communication tools. Telelanguage is something not new to MPS, but it is an on-demand translation system that we make sure our teachers are aware of during conference times. We have Synergy, although it's kind of on the back burner right now. We're working with the tech department and the people behind Synergy, but it's really cool. Parent View, if the family has, and correct me if I'm wrong, if the family has selected their preferred language in Parent View, and the teacher, whomever emails them in that platform, the language or the message is translated into their preferred language of the ones that are selected. So we ran into a little bit of a snag, so that's on hold right now. John has explained and shared with our teachers lots of ways to use Google Docs, text-to-speech, lots of Google applications that can support translation, and obviously Google Translate on your phone. I was personally had used this. I had a little kiddo from Korea, really did not understand. He was had any idea why I was trying to speak to him. So pulled out my phone, talked to him in his native language, well, my phone did, and it really just put a calm and ease over him, and he understood then what we were doing. Okay, with that, and we still have lots of ideas. I mean, we're bouncing around. How can we put together maybe like a peer-to-peer effort at our secondary schools? I know that there's students in our program or schools that probably want to help out where they can.
On average, how long is a student stay in the program?
That's a great question. My experience is that the earlier a student enrolls, so those little kindergartners, or we've got some we have a 3-year-old, right, in our pre-primary center. Did not screen that. We don't have a screening tool for 3- and 4-year-olds. But the earlier that they enter and start acquiring English, the quicker and sooner they are out. Like you can imagine kindergartner, you know, our kid, you're learning to read and write at that age, so they're immersed in the language. Where it's a little trickier is when students come in with very little English speaking skills and it's not spoken at all in the home. Older grades, secondary, you know, you can imagine those ages of kids aren't going to ask for help no matter what. So throwing them into an environment where they can't communicate is very, very tricky.
Are these numbers staying stable? Have they gone up in recent years?
Great question. Thank you for asking. They have gone up, but that is not unique to Midland. I do go to Washington, D.C. a couple times a year and meet with federal program monitors, and everybody's experiencing an increase in multilingual learners.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. You mentioned in the beginning that there is sometimes a refusal of service, or at least a right to refuse service. Is that something that happens often? And then the other part of that is, if they refuse, do they continue in the classroom? How do you deal with that student?
So I'll speak to the first one. The refusal of services is a student or family's right. That we do require them to sign a waiver or sign a letter that they are formally refusing services. I don't know, John, we have maybe 4 or 5 currently that, and they're on our list until we get that letter back. You know, if we have to send it, mail it home with a returned, you know, stamped addressed envelope, then that's what we'll do, but they're going to stay on our list until we have that. And then the other part of your question
Was, if they do refuse and they sign the waiver.
Do they stay in the classroom?
Do they stay in the classroom?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And then how do you deal with them, with a student who can't?
John can still
Communicate.
help out the classroom teacher and provide some strategies for how that student can be more successful. Usually the students that refuse services, at least in our experience, are the ones that are right on the cusp, or really maybe they're not very good speakers, but their written and reading skills are, and they don't want to be pulled out of class. You know, some of our high flyers that don't want to be taken out of a class.
I would say in that situation, if a student was not where they needed to be, they would likely be flagged through our SST process, our MTSS process, and probably have intervention in some other way, maybe just not through this program.
Thanks for bringing that up, Penny. Yep.
I'll also just offer quick, sorry, whoever I just interrupted.
You're okay.
These two hosted a really wonderful workshop, evening event for families. One thing that we're really trying to do differently is have this be a family approach. How many families attended that session?
30-plus families, I would say.
Yeah.
We had a whole classroom full of their children. His entire classroom was full.
And it was a great opportunity to explain the service and support we have available, to connect them with community resources, and these two have done a nice job partnering with the Legacy Center. They do adult tutoring, and so I think we have some examples where now families are receiving services across the board here with us and through the Legacy Center.
I should have put that in our slide. I'm sorry.
got you.
That was really a beautiful thing. We did partner with the Legacy Center this summer, and we offered, all of our buildings had different summer programs, so it was really hard to kind of think about, how am I going to coordinate this? Well, the Legacy Center was perfect because it was one location, and the beauty of it was we introduced families that didn't know about that, and so now the families are, reaching out for adult literacy and adult language skills as well.
Are all of the forms that you're sending home, are they being sent home in English?
Well, the ones that we can have translated, we do, and we have English copy.
Yeah, and with the refusal letters, with that, there's a process that I go through. Usually it's the multilingual specialist first that will say there's an interest by the student. I check with the multilingual specialist, the tutor, then I'll check with the classroom teachers and check their grades. Then I usually try to get a face-to-face with the multilingual learner. And then through that process, a lot of the teachers will be, the student's doing fine. There is no barrier with the language. The student's like, I'm fine, et cetera, et cetera. And then once that happens, that refusal letter can be in different languages as needed. And I just mailed out 4 or 5 today because it's like giving my students homework. I'm like, here's this homework, bring it back tomorrow. And they don't. So I mailed them out today because those students don't want to be pulled out of the regular classes. But the language acquisition plan requires that until we get that refusal letter. And even once they give us that refusal letter, they're still not officially exited. They still need to take the access in the spring, and they're still in our check-in list.
So, Penny, you answered my question, but I do have a different one. And I have this overwhelming sense that I have to say there's no such thing as a free lunch when Mr. Mulvaney's standing up there.
You can call me John, Phil.
It's still not comfortable.
Mr. Mulvaney.
So, the other question that I had was, when I look at your list and see languages like Ukrainian, and I know we have a family from Sudan, thinking about the support of the whole student and our mission to provide services both from, not just education, but social and emotional support as well. How do I identify students through this process and get them extra support that they may need when they're coming from a refugee situation?
Yeah, the families that we are aware of have been very open with building administration and classroom teachers, and so, yes, we're aware.
Okay. And then we connect them through.
Usually we have social emotional learners, and if the parents agree, we have our student support specialists that can work with them as well. Some have sought outside of school support in addition.
And a lot of time what's going to happen is going to be, I've had several teachers throughout the district. In elementary, obviously, they're going to be with that student all day, so they're usually the first ones who will contact me, and then we work with, as at Plymouth, where we have the whole group come together, and then we talk about how can we best help this particular student that I'm thinking of. And there's 8 people at the table within MPS, but also from outside, to get them all those support services. But usually, it's going to be that classroom teacher or the multilingual specialist, the tutor, who's going to start that process going, and then we follow through whether it's the counselors or all the way up the chain.
And Phil, I'll add to that. We did recently have a situation where a student was, the parent had requested the student be assessed for special services. So Anthony Gates and his team, they actually hired a translator that could help provide that assessment in order for us to get a real read of what that student's strengths and needs were.
My final question is in regards to the families. So wondering how many of our students are in that like top or exit out, but then they have family members at home that don't speak English, and what does that look like if they're not part of this program and communicating with families?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really don't even have a way to measure what parent needs are right now.
Okay.
That might be something to look into.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'll just add, in closing, you know, we certainly have more students that we're serving, and we're really proud of the work that we're trying to do. And I want to frame for you, certainly this is a requirement from the Department of Education, and actually civil rights has some requirements around this, but we're also doing it because it's the right thing to do. These students are entrusted to our care, so ensuring that they do have all of those services available and are ready to learn. We are still accountable for the academic learning and growth of these students. So the sooner we can get them into these supports, this tutoring, the sooner they can access the learning that's happening in the classroom. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kimberly and John, thank you. Excellent presentation. All right, moving on, we have an action item. This is item 3.3, and I think probably the best way to do this is to, I'll read it, ask for a motion, and then in the discussion portion of that, Phil is going to kind of bring us up to speed on how this process worked. So the action item is the Superintendent Search Committee recommends inviting the following firms to a special Board of Education meeting to be held October 23rd, 2023 at 7 p.m. The first is the Michigan Association of School Boards. The second is Hazard, Young, Attia and Associates. And the third is Ray and Associates. The firms will be asked to present their proposals and answer questions from the Board of Education. And with that, I will accept the motion.
Make a motion to approve item 3.3, approval of the recommended 3 search committees to interview next week.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roush, support by Mr. Hatfield. Okay, Phil, discussion.
So I was going to first read our meeting minutes from our subcommittee. Subcommittee met in this room on October 10th, 2023 at 12 p.m. to review proposals received for selecting superintendent search firm from the request for proposal posted by Midland Public Schools. In attendance were President Scott McFarland, myself, Brad Blasey, Brian Brutin, and Sarah Dooley. Guests in attendance were Ben Jodway from the Midland Daily News. The subcommittee considered the criteria outlined in the MPS Superintendent Search Firm RFP as published on the district's website and the State of Michigan RFP website. Of particular consideration, the committee reviewed factors outlined in a scoring matrix that included cost, experience, and search parameters or comprehensiveness of the process proposed. 4 proposals in total were received from the following firms: Michigan Association of School Boards, Ray and Associates, Hazard, Young, Attia and Associates, and then Michigan Leadership Institute. The subcommittee reviewed all 4 proposals. After deliberation and discussion, all 4 firms' responses were scored in the scoring matrix developed within the meeting, and the following 3 firms were selected to continue on to the interview process by the full Board of Education, which were Michigan Association of School Boards, Ray and Associates, Hazard, Young, Attia and Associates as the 3. The proposals from all 4 firms will be made available to the Board of Education for review prior to the upcoming Board of Education meeting tonight, along with the scoring matrix used in the selection process. The subcommittee recommends that the Board of Education hold a special meeting 1 week from today on October 23rd, 2023 at 7 p.m. to have each of the 3 selected firms present to the board and participate in the Q&A. So our thought was to start at 7, do about 10 to 15 minutes of presentation from the firms to us, and then have about the remainder of the half hour available for us to ask questions, and then make a selection within the meeting after seeing all 3 proposals next week. Any questions?
Okay, so we'll move back to our motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, motion carries. We will move forward with that and look forward to our interviews next week. Next up, we are in Section 4. This is request to address the board. So at this time, we'll open the floor, and I will invite Bill Domina. Bill, did I say your last name right?
Perfect.
All right. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good evening. Former gubernatorial candidate Garrett Soldano regularly posts excerpts from the public comment periods of school board meetings around Michigan on Facebook. A recurring theme is when parents, pastors, and citizens seek to have books or other materials deemed objectionable removed from their public school libraries and classrooms. In these excerpts, the commentator reads verbatim from sections of the materials in question. The board chair often interrupts the speaker, insisting that the material being read is inappropriate and cannot be read aloud. And then, to any objective person, the graphic nature of the content would be considered pornographic. Often the objection refers to there being children in the room. Does anyone see the hypocrisy in that objection? At least one board member knows that I have a basic understanding of Robert's Rules of Order. Since the consent agenda does not have a place for a discussion of new business, a motion to modify the agenda may be made. However, that motion must be seconded and approved by a 2/3 vote of the members present per Robert's Rules of Order 4163. Should you modify the agenda or add new business to next month's agenda, I want to implore one of you to make the following motion. Any book or material in Midland Public School libraries, classrooms, or available via digital means whose content may not be read aloud during the public comment period of any school board meeting shall be immediately removed and deemed inappropriate for the children under the care of Midland Public Schools. Even if there is not a second on the motion, or should the seconded motion not achieve a majority vote, it would show the public where each of you stand with regard to the current assault on the innocence of our children. I look forward to hearing that motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next up, Joe Bonadies.
Greetings. I will call this my second notice on the continuation of the Sharrow-era public comment intimidation paragraphs. In November of 2021, i.e. the era of mask mandates were popular, there was somehow need to go from a simple 8-word statement to a 240-word statement describing the constraints the board would like the comments to stay within. Ironically, this is the same period where the National School Board Association told the U.S. Justice Department to start considering parents as school board meetings as domestic terrorists. I know you are tired of me bringing this inconvenient fact up, but 25 states have left the National School Board Association, but not the Michigan Association of School Boards. And you appear ready to select MASB as your superintendent search company. And I'm still not happy that you send any of my tax dollars to MASB, especially to train school board members to be highly deferential to superintendents. I'll be back next month to give a third and final notice to the public comment intimidation language, which will close the window on you blaming the previous administration for this bogus behavior. And then we have the Open Meeting Act. Written in common language to provide transparency in government, the Midland Daily News, October 10th, our esteemed board president is quoted, "I feel comfortable bringing this to the board and moving forward with the 3 we selected." And the minutes of the superintendent's subcommittee, and the following 3 firms were selected to continue. I acknowledge you did not have a quorum of the board. We were told that these meetings were closed, but the Midland Daily News was at the meeting as a guest. The Open Meeting Act Handbook, page 12, all decisions of a public body must be made in a meeting open to the public. the definition of a decision, a determination, action, order, ordinance, bill, or measure on which the board, a vote by members of a public board, is required by which the body effectuates or formulates public policy. The filtering of 4 proposals to 3 certainly sounds like a decision affecting the public. Maybe the president and the keeper of the committee minutes needed to use a weaker term than select in order to stay fully behind the Romulan cloaking device. But I can assure you the board, they need have no fear. The MASB proposal, see page 497 of your package, has an entire section on how MASB is well-versed in the intricacies of the Open Meeting Act and have their expert attorney at the ready. And when MASB is here, you might want to ask them about parents as domestic terrorists. Thank you.
So let's address that for a minute, because this was an open meeting. It was made very clear it was going to be an open meeting. It was posted as such. I don't know who told you that it was closed? Was it an employee of the district?
When was it posted?
Whenever Ben found out.
Yeah. We
It was on the window when I walked in for the meeting at noon.
We discussed it at the last board meeting. You guys were here. We said it was going to be an open meeting because we were going to down select or eliminate one of the firms. There were no secrets here.
I did not hear the word open in that. I knew there was going to be a meeting.
It was publicly posted.
It was posted. It was,
Reported on to.
Daily News was here.
I don't visit the door of the building.
It's also on our website. If you need to know, there's an open meeting next Monday. It's currently posted on our website, and it's posted on there.
And the Midland and the news reported on it after the last meeting.
Okay. Is there anybody else who would wish to address the board tonight? Okay, we'll close the floor and move on. Next up, we have item 5.1. This is Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Study Minutes by Mr. Blasey.
The Curriculum Instruction Assessment CIA Study Committee minutes. Our last meeting date was September 18th. Members present were myself, Ann Horowitz, Jennifer Ringgold, Penny Miller-Nelson, Jen Service, Melissa Toner, Brian Bruton, and Jeff Jaster. Guests present were Anthony Gates, Joy, Tracy Renfro, Amanda Sherry, and we met at the Adams Elementary School. We started at 2 o'clock. Tracy Renfro, Adams principal, welcomed members to Adams Elementary and shared some highlights about the start of the school year. Diversity, Equity, Inclusion update. Joy introduced herself to the group and shared an update of her work since joining the district in August. Social Emotional Learning update, SEL update. Amanda Sherry updated the committee on progress related to SEL staff development proposal. This includes piloting select SEL resources with a small group of elementary teachers. The resources are aligned with the Michigan Department of Education SEL competencies. Feedback will be gathered to determine next steps. Special Services and Strand Report. Anthony Gates provided an overview of Midland Public School special education services and shared the Michigan Department of Education Strand Report data. Areas of strength and opportunities for growth were discussed. The committee then visited classrooms to better understand the services provided and interact with students and staff. We adjourned at 3:30, and the next scheduled meeting is October 16th.
Thanks. President McFarland just stepped out for convenience for a minute. Item 5.2 for information, textbook adoption.
That's me, putting on my curriculum hat. The following book is being presented for the 28-day period of examination. We have a book, and of course the book is available here at the admin building for anyone who wants to review that. The book is for our IB Business Management class in our high schools. The title is Business Management. It's published by Oxford, which is a common publisher we use for our International Baccalaureate resources, and the copyright is 2022. We'll bring that back for your consideration for action at the next meeting.
All right, thank you, Penny. Moving on, we're in item 6, Finance, Facilities, and Operations. We have study committee minutes by Mr. Waterbach.
Thank you, Scott. The FFO committee met on October 2nd. Members present were me, Brad Blasey, John Hatfield, Penny Miller Nelson, and Brian Brutin. The July and August financials were reviewed. Variances from year to year were discussed. July and August see a large amount of purchase orders annually due to fiscal year startup operations. We talked about the skid steer. The administration will recommend the purchase of a skid steer for the building trades program should 61C funding be made available from the Midland ESA. We talked about the fencing bid. Administration will recommend the award of a contract for fence work at the JV and varsity baseball and softball fields. We discussed the vape settlement. The administration will recommend approval of a settlement agreement related to the class action lawsuit MPS joined in December of 2020. We talked about the property and casualty insurance renewal. The administration will recommend renewing coverage with SETSEG. This is the third renewal of the policy. We discussed server replacement. The administration will recommend purchasing 4 video security servers. And finally, the facility study. The committee discussed the facilitation of a board workshop in November to share the current status of the facility study and solicit feedback on potential future actions. Next FFO meeting will be November 6th of 2023.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, we have a series of action items, beginning with 6.2. This is fencing installation. Mr. Bruton.
Thank you, President McFarland. Per the FFO minutes, bids were solicited for fence work at the JV and varsity baseball and softball fields. We are recommending this evening the issuance of a purchase order to the low bidder, which was Action Traffic Maintenance of Grand Blanc, Michigan, for a grand total of $154,000. If approved by the board this evening, capital improvement funds will be utilized for the service.
Thank you. I'll accept the motion.
I move adoption of the fence bid as proposed.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Lauterbach, support by Mr. Roush. Any additional discussion for item 6.2?
Just curious on the timeline for installation.
Weather dependent.
Okay, that's-
We'd love to get it in before the snow flies, but it's Michigan.
Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, item 6.3, skid steer purchase. Mr. Bruton.
Thank you. This is almost identical to a motion that you all approved last year. It had the same verbiage where it notes that if 61C funding is available through the ESA, last year that funding did not become available, so we are reissuing this request again to our ESA, and we want to make sure that we have this motion on record in case it does become available. So we're recommending that if that funding becomes available, that we issue a purchase order to the Clark Equipment Company of West Fargo, North Dakota. The delivering dealer for the skid steer is Bobcat of Michiana, which is located in Niles, Michigan, for a grand total of $67,528.57. This is from a state of Michigan contract, which follows your board purchasing policies.
Okay, thank you. I will accept the motion.
I move for the approval of item 6.3, skid steer purchase.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Hatfield, support by Mr. Roush. Any additional discussion for item 6.3?
Was the 61C lack of funding last year because the ESA didn't have it available or the state didn't appropriate it to the ESA?
Yeah, the ESA gets a set amount of dollars, and then all of the schools within the county submit what their asks are, and then from those asks, it is determined how much each school is going to get based kind of on a proportionate share formula, and this was near the end of those requests, and so there was not available funding based on the total amount of requests that came in at that time. We're confident this year that we're going to get this in.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, 6.4, this is property and casualty insurance.
Thank you. We are recommending that we renew our coverage with SETSEG of East Lansing, Michigan for a total of $221,871. It is noteworthy that this coverage does start at our expiration date of November 1st, but does not extend all the way until next November. This will expire on July 1st. We are one of the last school districts in the state of Michigan that had a November renewal timeline, and SETSEG is moving all of their clients to a June to July coverage timeline. So we'll be back to you in June, again, for consideration of extension of the coverage. As noted in the FFO minutes, this is the third renewal of the policy.
All right, thank you. I'll accept the motion for item 6.4.
I move adoption of item 6.4, renewing the property and casualty insurance with Set Seg.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Lauterbach, support by Ms. Ringgold. Any additional discussion, item 6.4?
I assume because it's a partial year, it's prorated.
Correct.
Good question. Any other questions?
In the time frame, I'm assuming since we've renewed with them 3 times and it sounds like they do school stuff like this with
Exclusively.
districts. Is there any thought at this point about getting bids for other or just?
Typically, it's a 3 to 5 year cycle.
Okay.
And that's something that we'll continue to discuss with the FFO committee on what period of time within that cycle is most applicable for the district.
I think that was how we ended up with Set Seg, right?
Yes, sir.
We had private insurance and we put it out.
That is correct.
Set Seg ended up being, okay.
It's quite an involved process. Usually, it's a 3 to 4 month process to get those bids out if we are going to do that. So we'll discuss further with the FFO committee around that time.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, 6.5 action item is video servers. Mr. Brute.
Thank you. We are seeking your approval to deliver a purchase order to Presidio of Wixom, Michigan for $171,272.60. This is to provide 4 Avigilon video servers. 3 of these were scheduled to be replaced this year as a part of Bond Series 3. We now need an additional server for capacity and data retention purchases or purposes that are related to the installation of Zero Eyes that you approved a couple of meetings back. This pricing was provided to us through the REMC bid. It follows your board purchasing procedures and policies, and if approved, 3 of these will be funded by Series 3 of your 2015 bond, and 1 will be funded by Section 31 AA funds, which allows for school safety coverage.
Great. Okay, I will accept the motion for item 6.5.
I move adoption of item 6.5, purchase of the video servers from Presidio of Wixom.
Support.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Lauterbach, support by Ms. Horowitz. Any additional discussion for item 6.5?
What's our best guess at how long these will last us?
I'll defer to Director
Yep.
Dietzick for his
I didn't
expert
even look at
opinion.
you.
Thank you, I appreciate that, Brad. Because I would have faked that one.
They typically last 5 years.
Okay.
The ones we have now, we've had for 5 years.
Okay.
Actually, 5.5. So
Okay.
the bigger problem, I mean, they run all the time. They run warm too because they've got GPUs in them. But they've held up well. So
Great, thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have another action item, item 6.6, gift totaling $120,000.
Thank you. We are pleased to seek your approval to accept on behalf of Central Park Elementary a gift of $120,000 to be able to provide funds for student experiences for the students of Central Park. If you allow us to accept that gift this evening, that $120,000 will be dispersed to MPS over 4 years at $30,000 per year.
All right. Thank you. I will accept the motion.
Make a motion to accept item 6.6, gift totaling $120,000 to Central Park Elementary.
Support.
Support. Apparently, we all think it's a good idea.
It's all good.
The motion by Mr. Hatfield, support by Mrs. Ringgold. Any further discussion regarding item 6.6?
Mr. Bruton, they have gifted us multiple times before, correct?
They had given us a very sizable donation before, I believe, Penny, correct me, about a year into Central Park Elementary's existence.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. And our current administrators presented to the donors of what the phenomenal outcomes were of that original donation, which has led to the continuation of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful gift. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, that'll move us into, wait, we have one more action item, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Item 6.2. Mr. Bruton.
Thank you. This is another gift that will require your action due to the monetary value. This is coming to us from Midland Ford, and they are going to gift to the Auto Tech program over at Dow High, a 2024 Ford Mustang GT convertible. This, if allowed to accept this evening, will be a tremendous asset to the program for them to be able to work on a modern vehicle. And for clarification, this will not be a drivable vehicle by Midland Public Schools employees, although we'd look good in that. But this is solely for their use for diagnostic and learning purposes.
Do they reverse engineer it to take it apart, put it back together?
That's a great question. This is something that I know that the instructor has worked with them on. This was a vehicle that was a part of the Detroit floods, and all that it was up to the bearings, so it's in great working order. Just a little bit of work to do there, but they are excited to be able to receive this vehicle.
This is so exciting because our auto tech program students are learning skills on obviously how the mechanics of automobiles. And so many of the donations we get are a little bit older. And so this will really help students. We have the latest diagnostic tools, which will be perfect for this. It's everything we've been hoping for. It's very different working on a modern car versus something from the 90s or even the early 2000s. This is so exciting.
How did they find MPS for this donation?
So I think this is a great example of relationships matter. Lance Ransom does a great job with his CTE advisory committee, and those folks are always looking out for him and our students in our program. And so this is just one of those connections over time that we've developed and had an opportunity to get a vehicle. It's great.
Okay, I will accept the motion for item 6.7.
Make a motion to approve the gift to the item in 6.7.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Roush, support by Ms. Horowitz. Any additional discussion for item 6.7? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next up is information only, item 6.8, gifts totaling $20,597. Mr. Ruth.
Thank you. We are pleased to present this evening for information only 15 gifts, as you pointed out, totaling $20,597. They represent a wide range of items, from robotics to athletics to classroom supplies, and per tradition, all donors will be acknowledged in our broadcast credits of the meeting this evening and also through board correspondence.
And moving right into 6.9, please.
Thank you. For information, gift of items, there are 3 items this evening that we are pleased to present to you. They represent welding materials, reset room furniture, and also professional development services from the Partners in Change organization.
Thank you. Next up, item 7.1, we have information, staff members who have announced their retirement. Mr. Jester.
Thank you. Yes, the below staff member has announced their resignation along with the effective date. This is Miss Lori Anderson. She's an office professional at Northeast Middle School currently, and she informed the district that she will retire effective December 1st, 2023.
Okay, item 7.2.
Thank you. We have two families that we want to at least send our condolences to today, so the board and staff extend sympathy to the following families. First, Ms. Judith Helvey passed away September 16, 2023. She was employed with MPS as a teacher at the former Glasgow School from 1957 to 1962, and she was also a guest teacher and assistant coach of girls track and basketball at Northeast Middle School before leaving MPS to become a director for Midland Preschool Centers. Lastly, our condolences to the family of Miss Sharon Alderson, passed away September 26, 2023. Sharon was employed with MPS for 2 different periods of time. First, 1979 to 1989. She was an aide and tutor at Cook Elementary, and then from 1989 to 2010 as a paraprofessional at Midland High School. Sharon retired in 2010 with 31 years of service to the district.
Thank you. Okay, item 8 is correspondence to and from the Board of Education. 8.1 is information only, letters to the Board of Education from, as you can see in the agenda, North America Procurement Council. 8.2 is letters from the Board of Education to Jay Kelly, the Black Cloud Giving Fund, and Charities Aid Foundation America. Item 9.1 is the list of remaining scheduled meetings for the year, along with the tentative schedule moving into next year. Item 10.1, are there any points of clarification before we turn it over to?
I just wanted to say again, a thank you, that there's 2 major CTE gifts here. And like Penny was saying, those advisory committees are so impactful. And both of those things are really amazing to the welding program and the auto tech program. And then also the gift of the reset room. The photos were in the communique today, and what a cool space. So again, thank you to everyone for all the generous gifts, but those are really some really special ones.
Any other points? Okay. Penny?
Yeah, so I already said it, and you just reiterated that, but it was something I wanted to mention. It's such a blessing to have, 2 pages here of gifts, and I think it speaks to the relationships that our principals, our admin team, and our teachers have with our community. And just want to express my gratitude to all of those folks for maintaining those really great relationships, and for all of these donors caring so much about our schools and our students. And it's such a variety of things, which makes it even more special. I wanted to just reaffirm to you all, we're trying something a little new. You may have noticed in the communique and in our communications that I am starting a superintendent student advisory team. As I shared in my 3 areas of focus this year, connection and communication is important, and this is a way for us to identify students and hear directly from them. We're going to focus particularly at the high schools as a starting point, and applications are open, and we are looking for a diverse group of students. I think in the video I even said we want the students who are very well connected to school, but we also want the students who might not find joy in school every day and are challenged to get there. Those are the ones I particularly want to hear from, so that we can understand what their experience is and learn how we can make it better for them. And that's I'll just round out on that high note. Gifts, and we're connecting with students.
I have one more thing.
Yeah.
Just for our meeting next Monday, I just want to verify that we'll have a quorum. Is there anybody that's not able to attend? John, I know you can't. Everybody else should be good? Okay, great. With that said, if there's nothing else, I will accept the motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Roush, support by Mr. Hatfield. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.